Hello and well. The first book that I read, this was the first book that I picked up from and it relation. So hello and welcome back to my humble little space in the internet, or at least one of my spaces in the internet, because you can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and I have a blog, themayonnaise.com. If you are new here, my name is May. You can call me May, and also you, old timer. Thank you for staying. And also let me share a special thanks to my number one fan here. As a regular viewer, get used to the noises and cheers from my number one fan. So today I will share to you the books that I have read on April. I actually did not expect that I will be reading this much books on April, because my whole April was booked, as in every week of April I have this project at work and they're all still pending. Right now it's the first week of May and they're all pending. I haven't closed any. I closed one. Anyways, let's talk about the books that I have read last month, April. It's already May today. I read 8 books. Tama ba? Yes, I read 8 books. I have 2 DNF. And as much as I want to rank these books, I can't find any favorite from this list. Instead of ranking the books that I've read in April, I'll just share with you the books chronologically based on the reading dates, starting from the first book that I have finished reading in April. The first book that I read on April is Patron Saints of Nothing by Ribay. I was already familiar with this book even before I picked it up. It has a controversial topic inspired by real-life scenarios, real-life experiences of Filipinos against drug war. This was the first book that I picked up from the Fully Book Coffee Project in Evia. We follow this young man named Jay, and he is a Filipino-American incoming student to the University of Michigan, hopefully, because we didn't get there. He is a Filipino-American and he visited at least twice, I think, in the Philippines. So he has this good relationship with his cousins, and one of his cousins, I'll just go ahead and talk to you guys. Excuse the dog or dogs. So as I mentioned, Jay has a very good relationship with his cousins, and one of these cousins is named June, has become Jay's pen pal when he got back to the US. One day, Jay found out that June was murdered in the Philippines. Yes, murdered because of the drug war. Jay cannot believe that June, his cousin, his best good cousin, was part of the drug war. So he went back to the Philippines and discovered some more things about the cousin and about the drug war and about the history and whatever is currently happening in the Philippines. I had mixed feelings about this book, but I enjoyed it, so I rated it 4. The inaccuracy of the descriptions of the practices in the Philippines and also the places as well, locations described in the book. I can't, being a Filipino local resident in the Philippines, I just can't. I think I have a full review of this book. I had a reading vlog for this book, and I will link it wherever here. I don't want to talk about this anymore, so let's move on to my second book. This book has been sitting on my TBR and on my shelf for almost a year already before I started reading it. It was supposed to be part of my giveaway, but I lost it. The Veritas Conflict by Shaunti Feldhahn, and I love this book. The moment I closed it, the moment I finished it, I was already decided to keep it. But I already promised to relay it to another subscriber. I'm so sorry if you are watching this. I promise to look for it if I have the time. This is a Christian fantasy fiction book. This is an interesting book because this was set in Harvard, and Harvard is one of my dream school that I will be dreaming of forever. So we follow, what is the name? Claire Rivers. So we follow Claire Rivers. Claire Rivers is a first year, freshman college student, and she got into Harvard. There will be challenges against her faith. This is a very good book, although this is not my favorite because some or most of the parts were boring, and the fantasy part hindi ko masyadong gusto, but this is a good book and I recommend reading it. Or into Christian or fantasy books, this is just so good. I cannot say anything about the plot, because I feel like I will be spoiling it. This is the battle or challenge of one person over her faith, God, and to her religion, and even to herself. Sayang, nawawala ko talaga yung copy ko, but I will look for it because I want more people to read it. Sana ma-relay yon. Kung makita ko man, kung sino man yung ikaw na bibigyan ko dapat nun, please share this book. Kung share ko man sa'yo, I promise I will look for it. This book will make you question your decisions, from the little decisions or small decisions, small actions, up to the huge decisions that you have to make your entire life. The third book that I read in April was 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. This is also another good book, although not my favorite because it's super boring at first. But again, I have to put this disclaimer. All books that I have, or almost all books that I have picked up and I have read, the first chapters are always boring to me. That's just on me. So 7 Days in June is about... nakalimutan ko na naman yung pangalan. 7 Days of June follows two main characters, Eva Mercy and Shane Hall. This is, I guess, one of the nominated books for romance for Goodreads Best Reads for 2021. When I read the synopsis, of course, hindi siya tumatak sa isip ko because I don't do synopsis. But I thought Eva and Shane were lesbians, so I picked it up because I felt like I need to read more about the LGBTQ community, or at least fiction or stories about them. Don't get me wrong, I have a lot of friends, even best friends, even barkada, na are also part of the community. But it still feels different reading about a perspective of different characters in one book, if you get what I mean. Apparently, Shane was a guy. Although I was not disappointed because this book was a super nice book. It's a very good read. I enjoyed this book. Although, yes, not my favorite. But this is the book that I regret not reading on February. I believe this was part of my February TBR, but I didn't get to it. It was a light read. This is about Eva and Shane, as I mentioned. They were high school sweethearts and then they fell apart. They took different ways. And then one day when they were already adults, and conveniently both were successful authors of books, they met in this literary awards or event. It's a bookish event. So they met there and the story continued. Although the challenge was overcoming the traumas, overcoming the confusions and regrets from their past lives, like, ba't mo ko iniwan and all, so the usual drama. But it was galing, like, as in, there were parts that I needed to pause and smile and make damada kilig. The third book that I read and my first 3-star read in April is The Hawthorne Legacy by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the second book of the Inheritance Games series, and why? And this is the epitome of a series that has a good, very, very good first book, and then with the second book, it just flops. But still, the mystery, the puzzles, the thinking is still there, so I enjoyed it. But every page that there is this supposed to be romantic scene, it's cringy. So if you're not yet familiar with the Inheritance Games series, we follow the story of Avery, an ordinary girl, ordinary but smart. I always forget that. And one day, you learn that she is part of the will of a very super mega billionaire, and nobody knows why she was part of that specific will. Why was she the main heiress of this guy? That is the first mystery of the book, which is then answered further in the second book. Yun pa lang yung share ko. And yun nga, every time it's just the romance part of the book didn't work for me, and every time there is this romantic scenes with Avery and her decisions, there are a lot of scenes that Avery cannot decide who is she going to be with, who she likes. Gusto ko si ganito, kaso si napaka-cute, kaso si ang macho bells, kaso si ang talino niya. The romance part was expected, of course, given the ending of the first book, but this is not what we look for in a mystery book. The next book that I finished in April is Killing the Dead by Marcus Sedgwick. This is a very, very short book, I guess more than 100 pages, and this is a horror book. This has a trigger warning on suicide and bullies, so you know already the plot. I feel that I will love the longer version better. This is fast-paced, this is direct to the point, but I would love to read a longer version of this one. I guess I will love it better. The next book that I have read on April is On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Vuong. This is a very emotional book. I was looking for emotional reads one time, and this is one of the recommended books from the internet people. This is written in the point of view of little dog. We don't have an exact name, but the author or the narrator or the author was named Little Dog at some point. His story is written in a letter to his mom, and what's best about this book is you can relate to, if not, you will definitely find a part that you can relate to. Like, we all have moms or even mother figures on our sides, and even not on our sides, if you get what I mean. There is this challenges between hatred and love, and you will feel both actually while reading this book. This is a very emotional, heavy read for me. I see why this was favorite, or at least one of the favorites of readers. I rated it 4 because I don't feel like I can give it 5. Yes, I'll give it 5. Can't talk more about this book any longer, but I will plan how to share with you my thoughts on the books or emotional heavy books that I have read or I will be reading in another vlog. Magsiiyakan tayo that time. But now, let's move on to the next book that I read on April. Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. This is the first book for the first body read of the Thrill Seekers. We have a new book club for thrillers and mystery books, and this was the first one, Rock, Paper, Scissors, and I loved it. Though also not my favorite because it's kind of predictable, and that's my main issue. We follow this married couple. I forgot the names already, but they're already married and they are going through this rough phase of their marriage or their relationship. So they decided to travel and go someplace else, spend time with each other alone, because apparently that would help their relationship or find their way back to the good or better relationship they had before. So conveniently, the wife won a raffle from their office, which is the first cringy thing in this book, because if you joined a raffle and you received an email coming from a different host or a different email, if you join the raffle, of course, you will be expecting confirmation, acknowledgement, or even a congratulations if you win from the same email address or the official email address that was shared officially to the group or to you as a joiner. And apparently, this wife received an email directly from the Airbnb. Naka-Airbnb ba siya? Hindi siya listed sa Airbnb, but the cabin mismo. And apparently, the cabin was actually a church turned into a home or a vacation home. But of course, since it's free, they just went. Plus, the night they arrived there was a storm, so they didn't have any choice but to stay the night. And it was creepy already, so they decided to just spend the night there and go back home or find another hotel the next morning. But it didn't happen because the thrill, the mystery unravels the next day. I just caught my cuento there, so I rated it 4 because it's kind of predictable already to me. Most parts are cringy. I can't share anything else. I can't share any more because it's already spoilery. Yeah, I rated it 4. I can't give 5. I will never give a 5 for this, but I will definitely read more Alice Feeney. This is my first Alice Feeney book. The next book that I read was actually a flop. So I read another one, which is also a flop. I tried the audiobook, also a flop. So I read another one, which is the last book I finished on April, and I gave it 3 stars, The Time Traveler's Wife. Which is unexpected because I love the movie adaptation of this one. The movie is already confusing, but the book is a lot more confusing. But I read it anyway. I finished it para matapos lang, because apparently I've already read this book years ago based on my Goodreads. And there are books, a lot of books in my read folder from years before on my Goodreads that I don't have any memory of the plot, although I have memory of holding the book, having a copy of that book, or at least borrowing those books, but I cannot remember the plot already. So I am rethinking of my ways to document my reviews and notes. Going back to The Time Traveler's Wife, I rated it 3. If you're not yet familiar with the story, or if you're not yet familiar with the movie, this is written in the point of view of the wife. And apparently, the wife already have met her husband. Hi! Come here! And apparently, the wife already have met her husband when she was still a kid. As in, super young. Hi! Hello, you say hello. Hala, kita yung fire. So, those are the books that I've read on April. And since Nemo is already here, say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See you on the next vlog.
See you next wow.
I'll give you ukulele lessons Monday mornings if you're free. We can go to wherever we like. There's so much out there to see.